To understand the future of belief, we have to look at the younger generations, millennials and Gen Z. They are not just walking away from faith, they are evolving to find a truth big enough for the world they actually live in. To visualize this shift, imagine a sample of 100 people from these generations. In 2014, the non-religious were a minority, but under the surface, doubts were already gaining ground. And by 2026, those quiet doubts became a visible exodus. In the Catholic Church alone, for every one person who joins today, 8.4 are walking out. That's not a leak. It's a total relocation of the soul.
Most people think they're children of the church because they were bored, rebellious, or just wanted to sleep in on Sundays.
We know they left. The real question is, why? Behind every one of these screens is a piece of the puzzle, from shifting demographics to the digital revolution. In this video, I'll show you the why.
I'm Andrew, a father, a traveler, and like your children, I had to leave the altar to find what was really sacred. So let's talk about where your children went and why they aren't coming back.
Welcome to the Altarless Traveler for the spiritually curious. Whether you're here because you've left religion or you're trying to understand someone who did, you're in the right place. The first reason for children leaving is the believability gap. Data from the Pew Research Center shows that 1/3 of those who leave their childhood faith cite science and a lack of evidence as the primary reason. This is the believability gap. It's not just about doubting, it's about a fundamental shift in how our children determine what is true. Among those under 45, 3/4 now see religion and science in a state of direct conflict. For them, it's not an either or, it's a choice. They are asked to choose between the phone in their pocket, which works because of physics, and the story in the pulpit. Let's be honest, it's hard to reconcile the modern images of the universe with a story about a guy fitting two of every single animal, including penguins and polar bears, onto a wooden boat in the Middle East. I mean, did Noah have a climate-controlled deck? Did he have a separate room for termites?
It's a tough spot for a kid. When we ask them to choose what they can prove in a lab versus what they are told to believe in a pew, it's no wonder that they choose the lab. For them, deconstructing religion is just when they start seeing that the math doesn't add up.
This is where it affects your life. When your child stops believing in the literal miracles, they often stop trusting the source of those miracles. If the church was wrong about the age of the earth or biology of a virgin birth, they wonder, what else were they wrong about? It quickly becomes a trust gap between you and them. The second reason is the exposure effect. In 1960, the chance of meeting someone with a fundamentally different background than yours was about 20%. Today, it's over 60%. Your children are growing up in the most diverse landscape in human history. The bubble that kept previous generations insulated hasn't just been thinned, it's evaporated. This isn't just about knowing people exist, it's about who they love. Look at the friendship data. Gen Z and millennials are 3 times more likely than their grandparents to have a best friend who is Muslim, Hindu, or atheist. Here's why this matters. When your child's best friend is a kind, ethical, and compassionate person, the old religious line of, "we have the only truth," stops sounding like a divine decree and starts sounding like bigotry.
It's hard to tell your children that their favorite friend is lost when they know they aren't. For your children, diversity is not a threat to their faith, it's a test of it. And if the religion they were raised in ask them to choose between their friend and the religion, they will often choose their friends.
Reason 3 is the integrity gap. To understand why your children left, you have to understand the world they inherited. In 1975, nearly 70% of Americans had high confidence in the church. It was the moral bedrock of the country. For your kids, The church wasn't a quiet, holy sanctuary. It was a 24-hour news cycle of the inexcusable. They watched the Catholic Church prioritize its brand and budget over sexually abused children. They saw evangelical heavyweights trade the good news for tax-exempt private jets and prosperity scams. They witnessed institutions like the Southern Baptist Convention cover up decades of trauma while lecturing the world on morality.
By the time your children were deciding whether to stay or go, the bedrock of the church wasn't just shaky, it was a sinkhole. The trust didn't just leak, it bled out.
And that lack of trust didn't just stay in the news cycle, it moved into the living room. It created a massive values gap between generations. While 60% of older adults still prioritize preserving tradition, nearly 80% of your kids have moved on. For them, equality and social justice aren't political distractions or signs of being woke. They are the new moral baseline. They're looking for real compassion instead of boundaries.
When your child looks at the church, they don't see the nostalgia or the comfort that you might see. They see an institution that, in their eyes, is on the wrong side of the people they love and the planet they live on. Your kids aren't walking away because they lost their morals. They're walking away to save them. They've realized that staying would require them to betray their own conscience. And in their world, integrity is more sacred than any institution. They aren't lost. They just refuse to be complicit.
Pillar 4 is the end of the information monopoly. Hard questions used to be met with a pray about it. Now your kids carry the world's library in their pocket. Deconstruction is no longer a footnote, it's a movement. Your children aren't doubting in the dark anymore. They're finding a global community of millions asking the exact same questions. The pulpit has been replaced by the platform. Only 14% of young adults trust religious leaders for the truth. They aren't looking at the guy in the robes. They're looking at the collective, messy, unfiltered wisdom of their peers and the internet.
The internet didn't steal your children's faith. It just gave them the tools to see the contradictions that were already there. They didn't lose their curiosity, and many of them did not stop in their search for God.
And once you've seen the world outside the cathedral walls, you realize the view from the pew was never the whole horizon. It was just a keyhole. I've spent my life looking for the sacred in over 50 countries. I've been in Hindu caves in Mumbai, Buddhist monasteries in South Korea, and Muslim mosques throughout the Middle East.
I reflect on my own upbringing. My dad was studying to be a Catholic priest when he met my mom and dropped out of seminary school. He had 2 children, but we went to church every Sunday, every holy day, or we had a reason why we didn't. And the priests, they came to our house. They had dinner with us. I went fishing with them. We grew up with them. And my own children, the priest in my wife's hometown, Minneapolis, came to her parents' house to baptize them. So when my children, at about 11 years old, and they were altar servers in a Catholic church in Thailand, when they came to me one lazy Sunday afternoon and said they didn't want to go to church anymore. And I said, well, why? And they said, we just don't believe it. And I said, well, what part? And they said, all of it.
For a long time, I thought they were lost. I thought their maps were broken, but I was wrong. Their maps weren't broken, mine was. I was trying to give them a world that fits inside a building while they were busy exploring the universe. They didn't leave because they stopped caring about what's holy. They left because the institution was too small for the truth they found outside of it. I now wonder how I could have ever expected my own children to believe in an ancient God.
So to the parents watching, is your map still accurate for the world your children live in? Or are you still trying to navigate a digital world with a medieval chart? Losing religion isn't the end of the road. For many, it's just the beginning of the real journey.
If your kids have left the altar behind, don't assume they've lost their way. They might just be looking for a faith that's big enough to include the truth. If you've struggled with your belief or your children's beliefs, you are not alone. Believe me, you are not alone.
I'm Andrew. This is the Altarless Traveler. Please like, subscribe, and share. And let's keep looking for what's actually sacred. Thank you, and keep the faith.